All right, so pretty cool opportunity we've got here with 5 of us, not just graduates, but instructors at the Air Force Federal Weapons School, and really cool all at the same time. So 15, 18 years ago, not just instructors, we've got our esteemed commandant from back in the day, General Rand. So when we talk about the dynamics of the weapons school obviously has this just aura, right? And we can blame it on the Navy because of Top Gun, right? And so we always have to fall back when we describe it, and it inevitably becomes, well, what are you talking about? What is the weapons school? And you're like, well, have you seen the movie Top Gun? Okay, but it's not like that, right? We always say, we caveat it to center everybody up and understand what it is, that we're training these elite instructor pilots, but then we have to go into the movie that's not what it's about. So if we're in that moment, how do you distill it? You know, and I'll start with you, sir. Like, how do you distill to someone you walk up to and say, what do you do at the weapons school? What is it? What is it that you produce?
That's a great question. Thanks, Scott. For me, I always say, what is the purpose of the weapons school is to produce these quality instructors to go back to their operational units and be the teacher of the teachers. And they are the lead instructor in that organization. But to get there, first they have to go through this very rigorous, almost 6-month program that they go through, and it provides them to be truly the subject matter expert on their weapons system. But it's more than that. That is really important, but the other part is they need to go back and be leaders in that organization. They need to lead by example. They need to lead from the front. And I value that. And after any of their expertise, not that it wears off, but after it maybe has faded some, they're still going to have been put through the grinder. And I call the weapons school leadership laboratory. And it's something that will stick with you for the rest of your life.
Dirk, thoughts?
You know, what comes to mind is, if we're going to talk about the weapons school, we have to talk about the mantra of the weapons school, right? Which is humble, credible, approachable. And those 3 words is just something to always fall back on as you're leading teams, as you're succeeding, as you're failing in particular, where you have shortcomings, and admitting that you have flaws, and then aggressively going after the root cause for those mistakes or those flaws, and then basically putting the team back together, right, to then make those fixes and move on and improve the team overall. So being a teacher of teachers and the passion for that pursuit of excellence is something that I know I've taken with me my whole life.
Yeah, I know you have.
Absolutely. You know, for me, I completely agree. I think it's, you know, the individuals that come to the weapons school are already instructors. They're not necessarily leaders. So that 6-month leadership kind of pressure cooker that we put them in, I think, puts them out the other side in the leadership laboratory as giving them a whole new perspective. And, you know, to kind of piggyback on what Robin and Dirk saying is, you know, one of the big things is in that course of the 6 months, they have multiple times that they fail in a mission and have to go fly the same mission again. And so part of that leadership building is, how do you deal and how do you cope with failure? How do you accept it? And then how do you move on, both personally but also professionally as a leader? There's not many opportunities, not many organizations where you get that opportunity to knowingly fail and then see how you respond yourself, whether you take responsibility for it, whether you deflect blame, whether you go back and reflect, figure out how to try to do better, how to try to do different the next day when you fly that mission over again. I think that's a key piece that, you know, oftentimes in a lot of other courses doesn't really get exposure, doesn't even really get an opportunity to do that inner searching, I guess you would say, in the course of the 6 months that they're there. And it brings, I know it brought me out as a different person on the back end. And I know coming back there as an instructor, seeing it and watching the students as they were going through also guess, helped me evolve a little bit as a leader also, and helping them and helping mentor them during those, it's like, darker periods during that 6-month phase. That was intentional on our parts.
So I got to take a second here because I'm sitting at a table with all these legends. All right, I know that sounds really, but I have to say it too. I'm sitting here at this table with these amazing people who've given a lot to the nation, and so I want to thank everyone at this table for their service. Awesome stuff. We could tell stories about every single one of these people, and that's neat. Big thing I took away after all, my time at the weapons school and going back was really exploring the dynamic of what informal authority is and the way you have to lead back in the squadron as a person of equal rank that doesn't have any authority over everyone else. And so that's why the mantra, humble, approachable, credible, as you look at it, really dovetails into how you lead. You have to have that informal authority. You have to, get that respect. You have to earn it. You have to keep it every day. People are watching you every day. They're watching you, how you fly, how you execute, how you talk to your family, how you talk to other people, how you treat other people with respect. And from that example is how you really earn that informal authority. And so I saw that not only in my squadron, but with other experiences, but I tried to impart that a little bit as I was an instructor there. That was one of the big lessons and kind of enlightening things that I had, Scott, that I went through.
No, that's good. And I think there's a lot of, like I say, aura is probably not the right word. I think there's just a lot of misconceptions about what we do at the weapons school. One of them, I believe, has always been that we take the best pilot, right? So we would say the best stick, the best hands, the guy or gal who can fly the best jet. And those are the people we send to the weapons school. And certainly I wouldn't have got there if that was the case. And but I think that when we circle back to the humble, approachable, credible, that's one of the biggest misconceptions of who is the ideal candidate. So who's the ideal candidate? Who would you pick as the wing commander or the squadron commander to send to the weapons school?
Yeah, it's easy. In the way we'd get those applications, and it'd be a resume. But I was really, really big as the wing commander because I wanted to make sure we always got it right to meet every single one. And everybody that watches this video will know that. I wasn't looking for the best person, I was looking for the right person. And the right person was the person that was going to go back and be that teacher, and it was going to be humble, approachable, credible. And they didn't have those values, then I wasn't going to give them a shot.
Completely agree. And we always looked at it, or I always looked at it as when I looked at those resumes and you're debating on who you're going to send to the weapons school, trying to get through first, second, third hand information of the individuals. So maybe going to fly with them if you get the opportunity, maybe seeing how they interact in the squadron, talking to the squadron commander. I always wanted to have the individual that was willing to learn. I didn't necessarily want the individual to go there that had all the skills, because just like you said, skills can get you to a great level as far as a pilot and an instructor pilot, but a willingness to learn, a willingness to engage with others, a willingness to take criticism in the process of learning is what oftentimes is the difference between a leader and somebody who's very skilled at what they do, but doesn't necessarily have the leadership tools to go with it.
Can I tell you probably the best lesson that I've ever learned from a life lesson about the weapons school that taught me? And that is, in any organization, how to get after challenges. And it's called the debrief.
Yeah. Amen.
And at the weapons school, we'd always debrief, and then operational squadrons as well, you'd always debrief the mission. And you'd review what you did, and then you'd concentrate on what went right and what went wrong. But if you stopped there, you wouldn't get to the heart of the issue. What you would do is what went wrong, why did it go wrong, and what are we going to do to fix it for tomorrow. And I have found that style will work in any organization I'm in, whatever I'm doing, and it's something that we can really capture the lessons learned and improve personally and organizationally.
And it requires an individual to be humble to do that, because you're going to eat some humble pie in the course of 6 months going through the weapons school.
Yeah, and those skills of developing a plan, right, executing a plan, and then hot washing it, debriefing it, evaluating it. In my view, it comes down to usually three things: communication, teamwork, and mutual support. And in every area where there was a failure, if you really peel the onion back, it's one of those issues where either there was an assumed communication that was understood but wasn't understood, a decision that was made on faulty understanding of the situation, or where there was a failure by one person of the team that didn't fess up that they were failing at the time, so no one knew to offer them help, mutual support.
So, continuing down that path, back when you were students, what core skill do you believe that you took from the weapons school that is there every day in your life now outside of the military, and what you use particularly in victory strategies for what we're doing with building these high-performing teams and developing leaders? What is that skill or that attribute or that lesson you took away from your time that you feel like every day you're just leaning on it?
Go ahead, Donn.
So I'll segue from debrief. Relentless pursuit of perfection, but critical thinking is what I took away as an initial skill. Einstein, whether he actually said this or not, there's some debate on whether he said it, but any problem that we're looking at, we should spend 95% of the time learning what the problem is, and then 5% coming up with a solution. And I felt like in the debrief, we were always in that relentless pursuit of perfection, trying to figure out why, to figure that one thing that we would want to make sure that we got right. And so that, as soon as you said debrief, great. I remember 23-hour debriefs, walk in one morning, leave the next morning, because we were about the relentless pursuit of perfection and critical thinking and solutions. So that's what I would take away from that question.
100% agree on the critical thinking piece. You stole my answer. I think that something that goes along with it is one of the mantras, and it's the humility aspect, because you can't be a critical thinker about what you've done right or wrong if you don't have some humility while you're trying to do it. If you walk into the debrief and you think everything that happened wrong in a mission was somebody else's fault or the result of somebody else's actions, and you're not willing to look at yourself in a very hard fashion, you're probably not going to get the right answers out of that debrief. And that was usually the folks that had the maybe great skills, but they didn't want to be honest with themselves about maybe they could be better at those skills. And so for me, humility to go with that critical thinking, because I think to have one, you got to have the other. Absolutely.
The other thing that I learned that has sustained me well is resiliency. That you can get back up, and when the proverbial stuff hits the fan, it taught me how to handle stress. And that paid off later in my career when I was leading large organizations and flying combat missions.
As you're scanning your environment, right, for what's happening, what are the threats, what resources do you have, where do you have shortcomings, how do you make decisions about the application of resources, where do you accept risk, and if you accept risk, have you thought about the ways you're going to mitigate it?
Right.
And then, given that you've come up with a framework for decision making, perhaps in a planning phase, as you're in execution, do you follow that framework? And while in execution, do you determine that framework might need to be adjusted? And you're able to then apply your rapid assessment of the situation to change the framework in mid-flight, and then basically encounter something you had not planned for and come out on the other side and still get the mission done.
Now you've stirred this old fighter pilot up. I want to go fly again. Put me back in, Coach.
Exactly.
Listen to that.
That was good.
It was great. Well, awesome conversation. It's great to have this team back together, and now at Victory Strategies to take all of these things that we learned and then taught, and now be able to share it with our clients out in the private sector. So thanks for the time this morning.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.